I heard a whoop whoop sound at 4:30 in the morning, and I sat up in bed and I thought, I did not just hear that. I saw 15 male Sasquatch in a circle around this area. I'm Margie Kay, and I am a 40-year plus UFO experiencer and investigator and paranormal and everything that goes along with that. I serve as Assistant State Director for Missouri MUFON, and I'm also the director of the Oz Institute, which is a training educational institute for metaphysical and esoteric studies, specifically remote viewing, along with other things that go along with that. And my first encounter was at a young age, about 10 years old, when I saw my first ghost. And it happened to be my grandfather, but I didn't know it at the time. I was lying in bed, and all of a sudden, this head appeared at the foot of my bed. It was all white, and there was no body to it, just the head. And he was talking, but I couldn't hear anything. And so after the screaming stopped, my father came running into the room, and he, asked what I saw, and I explained it. So he went to get a photo album, and he brought me the album. He says, "Is there anybody in here that looks like?" And I picked out his father, who had died 6 years before I was born. And so that was my first introduction to paranormal, and I wanted answers, so I spent a lot of time at the library checking out all the books I could every month and asking people, and just trying to discover what this was all about. And then I became interested in all things paranormal. So that led down the rabbit hole, of course, to cryptids, UFOs, paranormal hotspots, portals, you name it. And so basically that was how I got started on my journey. Then I saw my first UFO. I think probably before this, but I was 17, where I consciously remember the entire family seeing this long silver object that tracked our vehicle. We were driving to Texas and Mexico on a vacation in the 1970s. I was 17 years old at the time, and my brother and sister were younger than me. My mother was the passenger, and I was driving. And we all saw this very long cylindrical silver object with no wings or tail and no sound, very close to us and at least 1,000 feet long, and follow, and track our speed. So if I slowed down, it slowed down, sped up, it sped up. And this occurred for quite some time. It was actually daylight, like between 3:30, 4 p.m. And the next thing we knew, we were pulling up in front of a motel, and it was dark, and nobody knew what happened, where, why we weren't on the highway anymore, where this thing went that we couldn't explain. And so now looking back on that, of course, years later, I realized it was probably an abduction experience.
Wow. Now, as a remote viewer, have you ever remote viewed your own experiences?
Oh, yes, I have.
Have you
I have.
remote viewed that one?
No, I didn't remote view that one for some reason. I probably should put that on my list. I've remote viewed others situations, and one in particular was when I was about 10 months old. I had a severe nosebleed, and prior to that, I'd seen a blue-white light come in the window that I was very afraid of. And then I screamed for my parents, and there was this blood all over my crib, and it took quite some time to get the nosebleed stopped. So I always wondered, what happened there, because I felt like there was something up in my nose that didn't belong there. And so I did remote view that, and I saw 3 ETs float into the room on this blue-white light, lift me out of my crib, and I was stiff as a board, and they just kind of floated me up, although I could look around and see things, and took me right through the walls and the windows up to a craft that was hovering right above our apartment. And I was lying on a table and they were, doing testing and stuff on me and put me back. But I remember very clearly what each of them looks like. And there was an older one, a middle-aged one, and a younger one that was maybe in his, what I would think would be 20s, but who knows? And they were what I would say the tall or taller grays, but with not huge eyes, bigger than human eyes, small mouths, small nose, but they had expressions and wrinkles on their faces. And, it's kind of how I differentiated these ages. But they were very unemotional. They seemed to be doing a job. They had a certain amount of time to do it, and they needed to get on their way. And the other thing that I knew during the remote viewing session was that that blue white light that they use changes the molecular structure of walls and windows so they can easily pass through anything they want to.
That blue light is often, of course, I know it's everywhere and a lot of people see it under multiple circumstances, but I do a lot of Bigfoot
Mhm,
interviews. Do we still
mhm.
have you, Margie? I've got your name up here.
Oh, yeah, I thought we were not on video,
We are on video.
but
Yes.
if because I don't
Yeah.
see you, I just see your
No,
picture.
no, you're on video. I'm on audio. Okay.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay. So that's the way it is.
Sorry.
Not a problem. Okay. So, where's the blue light? Yeah, let's go back to that blue light.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, and there again, the primary interviews I do UFO paranormal, but that's kind of a sideline to my Bigfoot interviews. But there seems to be a huge crossover between these Bigfoot experiences that people have and some of the UFO experiences, because I've been in the UFO field much longer than the Bigfoot field. But that blue light that you just described, let's talk about that a little bit. I'm sure you've explored that even further beyond that or heard of it more than that time. When people have a Bigfoot experience, oftentimes they have this blue light experience as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, I have done a number of investigations, where there's a combination of different things going on. Maybe there's UFOs and Bigfoot, sightings in the same place, close to the same time or at the same time, and then sometimes paranormal gets involved as well. But a lot of people have seen a beam, a blue white light, or just blue white light, just so bright that they can't see any structure behind it, but they know something has to be there. And this has been associated with a lot of things. It's been associated with portal openings, flashes of light, either white or blue white, that Bigfoot walks in and out of, and then also craft that appear and disappear through. Uh, I've even had a case in Kansas City where a Mothman was seen appearing out of a blue white light. So that whatever that technology is, which to me is probably like opening a portal or a wormhole, but it's changing the molecular structure of objects so that they can be easily passed through, and then they are seemingly unaffected after this light is gone.
So would
It's
that
very
even
strange.
include just even our atmospheric structure of even the air and the atmosphere, whereby they can create a portal from wherever they are
Mhm.
into what we can conceive as our physical reality here?
Yeah, and I was contemplating this portal idea before, when I was almost finished writing the book Winged Aliens. And the premise is that some of these winged creatures could possibly be aliens or interdimensional beings. And I just thought that while I was sitting in my hot tub one evening meditating, and all of a sudden this circle of light flashed, and a fairy, a gold fairy about 6 inches tall, came out of that light and then the light went out like it closed. She flew across about 10 feet across my deck, and then another exact same thing, this circle that was an oval shape, really, flashed. She went into this light, and then she disappeared into it. And that was my answer. I mean, here I am thinking this, and this physical thing happens right in front of me to explain that there are things that can create a portal, go into another dimension, and then leave that dimension through another portal.
I
So
think often,
they're creating it.
exactly. I think often too many times we get kind of stuck in a rather simplistic box. We have a landing of a craft, or we have, an incident with a Bigfoot, and we go to this location, assuming it's something about that location that is creating that incident. That there's something there, or something from the past, or something from the future, when what I think you're saying is they kind of carry this technology with them, and they're able to create basically a portal wherever they are.
Well, it's my opinion that it's both, because I've also discovered some very strange buildings and structures that are built in such a way to allow a portal to be created. But yes, I believe that somebody has some people or some beings have the technology to create a portal when they need it and where they need it. So in somebody's closet in their house, uh, like some people I know have, where things come in and out all the time, or outside or in the woods, in it, wherever
So
they want it, wherever it's needed, and it may even be underground as well, and obviously in the sky with UAPs.
exactly, they're everywhere. So let's go to that. You piqued my attention here with the comment you made that there are some buildings or structures that, in and of themselves, is it basically the way they are built or how they are structured?
And their materials used in the structure. So the first thing I discovered was buildings that were built by the Masons, and they would have, in most cases, they would have be constructed with limestone with quartz in it, and there will be some Masonic symbols on the building. But the only reason I would be at that place would be because there was paranormal activity around the structure. And I didn't, it took me quite a few years to put this all together after I had investigated some major cases. One in particular in Butler, Missouri, was something I worked on for quite some time. And this was a major case with UFOs chasing people, hitting the top of their car, ETs showing up in their houses, people being abducted and then finding themselves in other places across town in the middle of the night, and they didn't know how they got there. So this all centered around the main, guess would be the courthouse, yeah, in Butler. So I went there several times, and I took some other investigators with me. And one day I brought several sets of dowsing rods, and I said, let's go around this building, this courthouse, because that's where everything seems to be centered. UFOs and balls of light were seen around this building quite often. And so three of us did that. And we split up and we tested the entire perimeter. And then I drew a diagram, and the others concurred with me that that's exactly what they found. The width of the ley lines and the location of the ley lines. And so what I discovered is that building was situated exactly so that the main entrance was north, the second entrance was south, and then they had east and west entrances, and it was exactly, to the compass. Then there were diagonal ley lines coming off of the building at the corners, and then there were additional ley lines that were north-south on either side of the structure, about 25, 30 feet away from it on each side. And so either the whoever built this, when they had signs of, Masonic symbols. Either they knew that there was something going on there and they discovered ley lines and built that structure there purposely, or the construction of the structure created these ley lines. And so in my research, I found that these energy centers, power centers, lines of energy have to do with paranormal activity at times. And, or, perhaps they are creating portals. Well, in this particular instance, one of those diagonal lines went right through these people's house that I was investigating. And so I don't find that coincidental. That's too coincidental to be happening. Then the other thing that I've discovered with construction has to do with one building in particular. And then, I discovered others later, but this one is the RLDS, now called Community of Christ Temple in Independence, Missouri. And if you've seen that, it is a very strange spiral structure built out of concrete and steel. And the spiral actually continues beyond where they've made sidewalks and going into parking lots. So from the air, looking straight down on it on Google Earth, you could see that this spiral continues. Well, we tested that with, I took a whole team of students out one day, maybe about 12 of us were there, and we doused this. And oddly, what we found is that every 10 feet, there would be a 10-foot section, a 10-foot deep section that is a ley line or an energy coming off of this structure. And then for the next 10 feet, there would be nothing. And then there would be once again. So the spiral just, continued out. And oddly, my house is located 6 blocks from this structure as the crow flies. I have a portal at my house, and I think that this building has created a major portal because there have been multiple sightings of UFOs, balls of light of all colors, objects that people think are drones and then they disappear in thin air, birds or giant hawks that disappear or act strange, or fly but they don't move, but they're flying. Creatures that have been described like kind of monkey like creepy looking creatures out of some horror movie around the square in Independence. And even in a couple of instances, people have seen aliens looking in their windows. So there's a lot going on there, and I think that it is because of that building and because of the structure of it.
I see. So you've concluded it's not only the beings, it's location, it's structure of buildings, that there's a lot of varied things that can contribute to possibly opening up a portal that might allow an entranceway into our known reality.
Yes, and perhaps the buildings themselves make it easier to create a portal opening. So maybe the energy from that is created and makes it easier. I think we need to do a lot more testing on that. I'd love to get Travis Taylor out here to take a look at a few of these things, but he's too busy with Skinwalker and other projects to do that. But I do know a couple of physicists, and they are very interested, and that is the next step. They're going to come out and try to use some other equipment. And I just got a spectrum analyzer not that long ago. I've been using it on some UFO investigations, and I have discovered 2 portals using that, because as soon as I turn it on, it's hitting 1.6 gigahertz. So I am going to take it to these buildings, and there will be a forthcoming book on this.
Good. I look forward to it. So I know you mostly delve into paranormal and UFO activity. Have you ever done any research on the Bigfoot topic?
Oh, tons of it.
Okay,
Tons of
well
it.
tell me
Oh, yeah.
about some of your research on Bigfoot.
I've been working on Bigfoot for about 20 years because I realized at one point it's connected. It's walking in and out of portals. This is a being that can disappear at will. So, it's got to be interdimensional. Uh, yeah, I've done a lot of investigations. I think one of the biggest, I'll mention this one, is from a place in mid Missouri, right along 38 degrees latitude. There was a paranormal team, and in this team of 4 people were 2 law enforcement officers. So they had a lot of experience, and they'd been doing that work for quite some time. But they came across something that they couldn't explain, so they called me, and I visited, and I watched a video that was 45 minutes long. In the video, well, the whole reason they did this, let me back up. Their son is a hunter, and the son went out hunting at a certain place in the area, and he saw a Bigfoot that he said was about 8 feet tall. Came out of the woods, ate some berries, went back into the woods. And this guy also had, just before that, found a huge pile of bones, of animal bones. And they very carefully put in this pile of bones. And this is in an area that's not very well known to the public, but it's a conservation area, so the public does have access to it for hunting. Well, as a follow-up to that, I did call the Missouri Department of Conservation, and I said, "What animal collects bones in piles in Missouri?" And they said, "None." So, okay. So I did also ask if there had been any Sasquatch reports at any time with the Missouri Department of Conservation, and they said, "No, never heard of it." I said, "Okay." So I don't believe that for a minute. The 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 witnesses' parents, who were the paranormal investigators, they all set up, a couple days later, they went back out to the spot. They brought all their paranormal equipment, and they've got everything. They've got night vision. They had all kinds of cameras set up, uh, EMF meters, K2 meters, everything. And they were trying to find out if there was a Bigfoot. And so they're in the same little field, uh, which was just an opening in the woods. And a little bit into the video, you start seeing these white, tiny balls of light that are very bright, but they're small, and they're in the woods. And at first there was just 1 or 2, and then all of a sudden there's dozens of them. And they come out into the field, and they come over to the people, and they are looking at their cameras, and they're looking at the people and going around, and they're acting intelligently, these balls of light. Now, they did capture them on all the footage, the video footage. They said that they saw about half of them with the naked eye, but in the camera, of course, you could see a lot more. And that is because, of course, cameras get a lot more of the visible light spectrum, or beyond the visible light spectrum, so they capture more. And the newer cameras, of course, are fantastic. They get a lot more than the older ones. And this was about, I'm going to say 8 years ago that this happened. Well, the next thing you know, the 2 men are discussing this light in the sky, and the camera goes up, and you see a light coming in, and they're saying, "Oh, that must be a helicopter." Another guy says, "No, that's a plane." Then they're like, "Well, wait a minute. Why did it stop? How is it doing that?" And then there's some other lights that just appear, and then they start blinking on and blinking off. Well, at that point, they're not looking at the balls of light, which is now dispersed in the woods. They're now looking only at the sky and watching this light show happen. So they thought, and they would say, "You see this light flash over here, and then all of a sudden it's over here. It's moving really fast." But that's not what I saw. I kind of remote viewed at the same time that I was looking with my eyes. I saw a gigantic cylindrical mothership. I mean, huge. And there were these pie-shaped sections in it with these lights, that were just flashing off and on. They were not moving from one place to another. It was just stationary lights that were coming off and on. And after I mentioned that to these investigators, they all said, "Oh yeah, that is right. That is what's going on." And then they really freaked out because they'd never had dealings with UFOs, only paranormal, hauntings, ghosts, whatever. But and then now that we're looking for a cryptid, which is something they'd never done, and they didn't find a cryptid, they find UFO 2 days later after they had seen a cryptid in the exact same spot. So is there connection? I think there probably is.
I just did an interview the other day that that tied it in much the same way that you're talking about, where these three gentlemen were looking down and it was dark and they saw the glowing lights of Bigfoot. But then another big bright light, comes in, swoops down into a valley. All of a sudden, all of the 12 Bigfoot lights or eyes that were glowing at them, they turn around and they hear this commotion where they run down into the valley and meet up with the light that's down there. They thought it was probably a pickup process or some kind of a meetup of some sort.
Wow, that's interesting. That is very interesting.
Yeah, so I don't think we can deny that these lights and Bigfoot and all of this have some kind of a bearing or a connection. I think it's hard for some people to rationalize that out and understand what it is or how it is. I think people like you and I who come more from a UFO background find it much more acceptable, much easier to see those things as being connected.
Yeah, especially I've done a couple of cases where the witness saw a Bigfoot walking along with an ET, with a gray. And then in one case, walking around a pond with the gray, and while a ship is on the ground landed, and then there's another gray standing next to it, then the Bigfoot and the gray walk over to the ship, and the two grays get on the ship and leave, and the Bigfoot goes back in the woods. Yeah, what, they at least know each other.
You think it was a drug deal?
Who knows? Maybe they were making plans for something. I don't know.
It sounds like some kind of a drop off there. I'm not sure exactly what that was.
Yeah,
I was just kidding, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does seem like there's some kind of an interaction, some kind of a reason that they're communicating and having some kind of contact with one another here. One person suggested Bigfoot was doing research for them and getting into places they couldn't land or get into. I don't know if that would be true or not, but that they were gathering some kind of information for them. But maybe, I don't know. So have you taken Bigfoot reports otherwise, people that just really had an encounter of some sort?
Yeah, I have an amazing one, I can tell you. Lady, well, this investigation started out because a woman's husband had been abducted, presumably by ETs, and I and my entire team were at this site to investigate. And we took evidence, and the evidence came back as non-human DNA. So there was definitely something going on there. And I developed a rapport with the wife who witnessed her husband being taken. And she said one day, she said, "I want to tell you something really strange. Are you interested in Bigfoot?" I said, "Yeah, definitely." She said, "Well, one day, a couple years prior to this, she had the sudden idea to take her little Canon camera out to the woods and take pictures of Bigfoot." She said, but prior to that, she had no interest in Sasquatch at all. And then all of a sudden, and she, by the way, is a PhD psychologist. She had no interest in doing that, but she decided she would. And she started going out by herself. And then she started taking someone with her, either her husband or a friend of hers would go with her. And they just went to one spot, one area, general area in Grandview, Missouri, near Grandview. And it was very wooded, very isolated, and up on a big hill. So they would go there and she would sit in her car, or she would get out of her car, and she created some kind of a rapport with this entire clan of Sasquatch. And they eventually, she just knew they were there, probably picking that up psychically, or the thought was sent to her remotely, or by remote viewing or psychic transmission, telepathy. And she came to know all of the members of the clan, and they started appearing to her, or at least partially appearing. And then finally they let her take some photos. And I did see the photos, and they look very real. But she would not let me take them or publish them. She said maybe someday, but I don't have them. But I do know I saw them. And at one time she went out there with a friend of hers, and he was sitting in the car. She got out of the car, and she was drawn to one area, and she saw a large male Bigfoot lying on the ground, and he looked like was very ill, or he was dead. And the odd thing was, there were two little children, a boy and a girl, with curly blonde hair, that she said they both looked too perfect. And they were holding the head and shoulders of this gigantic Sasquatch, in their arms. And she was trying to process this when she notices that there's a woman with really long dark hair sitting on a branch in a tree, watching the scene below. She doesn't see anything else, but then she hears a noise to her right, and she sees a small silver disc come down, land, doors open, and an older human-looking gentleman comes out and starts walking over towards the Bigfoot on the ground. And he looked over at her, and then he realized that she could see him. So he walked right over to her and said, "You can see me?" She goes, "Yes, I can see you." So he took the time to stand there and talk to her for a minute. And he said, "Do you know why this happened?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Take a look in your camera." So she had taken the camera, and she took a look at the last picture, and she saw the Bigfoot lying on the ground with the two children. But over to the left was a dog man that was at least 7 feet tall, with huge fangs, being held back by two big Sasquatch. He said, "They just saved your life." That Sasquatch on the ground sacrificed himself to save your life. And she was just shocked about the situation. And he said, "You should not come out to the woods anymore. The dogmen are out here." He said, "We are here, that we brought the Sasquatch here." It didn't say when. "We brought them here to protect the portal," which is where he just came in on his ship, apparently, "and to protect humans from the dogmen, or wolfman, whatever you want to call it."
Well, that's an
So,
amazing story, too.
yeah.
Very interesting, that Bigfoot, kind of saved the day there. I've heard other stories where there was, a sense of rescue from a Bigfoot as well.
Yeah, and she left and never went back. She said she will not go back
Any
for that
idea,
reason.
did she have any idea why she felt an inkling to go take the pictures to start with? Because that would have put her in kind of a harm's way in some ways.
Yeah, no, she didn't know. She said she is somewhat psychic, and she must have just picked up the fact that they were there and wanted to investigate. But I've had this I've heard this from other witnesses before, who've said they suddenly wanted to go out and take pictures of something. For instance, the Butler case, this was one of them. One of the things that they did, and this is how everything started with them, was this idea to go take pictures at night, get with this little tiny camera that's not that good, to make a calendar. But in the photos that these people took, there were ETs everywhere and other creatures we couldn't identify.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, so Bigfoot, let's go back to her story. I just find it really, really interesting. So this man gets off of the ship and asks her if she can see him. Do you think that some people can and some people can't see them?
Most definitely. It is determined by your level of consciousness and vibration. And obviously, she had reached a high enough level of consciousness that she was able to see these entities, and I believe they were in fifth dimension. And so and in fact, the person who was with her, her friend, could not see anything or hear anything. Could not hear that
You,
conversation.
you mentioned the children, the blondes. What was their role in all of this?
They were there obviously to bring this Sasquatch back with them. The intention was they were going to take it with them on the ship, and I don't know. She still doesn't know if it had passed away or if it was still alive, but they were taking it. That was their intention.
Okay. Well, that's amazing.
So,
I haven't heard anything that detailed about Bigfoot. There again, most of the stories are encounters that people have, random. They may be a researcher. A lot of them are just, boots on the ground, going out there researching. They don't have a lot of knowledge about paranormal or UFOs. They might accidentally see a craft in the sky or a light that comes along, but a lot of them don't have that much of an experience with it. But I also have concluded that it kind of falls with the person as to what they're able to witness or see. And oftentimes, and you may have heard this as well, with Bigfoot cases, there's a huge loud commotion. There's something that's going on in the woods or on a campsite when someone's in a tent, and they think there's going to be just destruction everywhere because of all of the noise that's being made. And then they later on either go into the woods and check out an area where they've heard the sound, or they come out of the tent the next morning when the sound is quieted down, expecting the campsite to be completely messed up everywhere, and find nothing.
yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, it's very similar to paranormal experiences that people have in their homes, and they'll hear a crashing in the next room that sounds like a bookcase is just fallen over and everything in the room is destroyed. That's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of people I know. And then you go investigate and nothing's out of place. Not one thing. I mean, I even know people who have called the police because they think there's a burglar in their house and they can't find anything and they think it's a hoax. Uh, yeah, what that is, I don't know if they're trying to get our attention, if they want us, to look in a certain area or be somewhere at a certain time. I don't know what that is, but or it could actually also be a time imprint. You know how some people will see what they think is a ghost walking by and doing the same thing every day. They'll see it constantly. Well, it's not a haunting, it's a time imprint where the person is just picking up something that person routinely did in that house. Well, that could be something too. Maybe if these loud crashes that people hear once in a while is something really big that happened and a lot of things got destroyed, that would be emotional to a person. And as you know, emotions tend to make the feeling of that or that event kind of hang around. It's kind of like a video or a movie of something that just kind of whatever that was sticks around in that same location.
Exactly. And sometimes, and I've talked about this with some of the people I've interviewed as well, regarding Bigfoot. They'll see something that looks ghost related, and then they see a Bigfoot maybe somewhat in the same area. Both of them kind of vanish or disappear. And maybe Bigfoot also at times is an impression from a different time frame, and it could be future or past, either one.
Could be, could be. Yeah.
It's hard to say. It's really difficult when you have something only for a few seconds and then it's poof gone.
Yeah. I had an encounter with a dog man a few years ago in a hotel room in Boonville, Missouri, where it walked through the door. It was transparent, but you could see every detail about this thing. Jumped on my bed and growled in my face. And I jumped out of bed, went over to the corner, and then I couldn't see it anymore. And my sister was in the other bed. She says, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, you're not going to believe this, and I don't believe it, but I just saw a dog man, and he's in this room." And she says, "Well, where is he?" And then I look down and I see these two hands with long claws coming out from underneath the bed, headed towards my ankles. So I backed up and I just thought, I knew about the story with the Sasquatch protecting the woman from the dog man. Now, what am I going to do here in this case? I didn't have any experience with that at all. And the first thing I could think of, and the only thing, was to call in Valiant Thor, my ET contact, and ask him for help. And he did. He sent a beam of white light down and pushed that entity out. And I have never seen or heard from a dog man again, but I'm not seeking him out, and I'm not going in the woods camping.
I don't blame you. Dogman seems to be an extremely vicious creature.
Mhm.
Anytime I've heard anyone talk about Dogman, it's just really not pleasant at all. Bigfoot, on the other hand, seems to be intimidating at times, but not harmful to people. What is
No.
your experience in the difference in these two, and what purpose does Dogman serve here at all, if any?
I don't know what the purpose is of the dog man. I suspect that he is an interdimensional entity. That's why nobody can catch him and they don't find a body. It's here to cause havoc. Obviously, if the Bigfoot are here to protect us from that creature, well, I'm glad they're here if that's true. But my experience with Bigfoot is a little bit crazy. So if you want to hear the story, I will tell you my personal
Absolutely.
experience.
Yeah, yeah, please do.
Okay, so the case I mentioned earlier, where the private detectives and paranormal team saw UFOs and their son had seen a Bigfoot. Okay, several months later, I suddenly got the idea. I wonder if the Bigfoot, if that Bigfoot was real, just basically thing. So I decided to remote view to see. And I was instantly there in the woods. I'm in next to a huge tree, gigantic, and a male Bigfoot, all black, comes over and pulls a bunch of uh, branches and stuff away from a hole that goes underneath the tree. It's a really big, area where they've taken it out underneath the roots. And there's a female Bigfoot inside in labor, and there's another juvenile Bigfoot standing next to her. The male brought water in on a leaf and gave her water from the leaf. And I'm looking at this, I go, okay. Several months go by, and then Debbie Ziegelmeyer, our state director for Missouri MUFON in St. Louis, she lives in St. Louis, I'm in Kansas City. Uh, she puts out a notice that she has Kiwani, I think it's asperitis. Anyway, he wrote a book called The Psychic Sasquatch and some others, but he was going to be talking about that. And suddenly this voice in my head says, "You have to go. You have to see this." So I drove to St. Louis, heard him speak, got his book. In the book, it says the Sasquatch are very intelligent. They can be anywhere they want at any time. They'll have relationships with certain people, and they will, they'll allow contact, and they also have healers with them, and just on and on. And I thought, well, shoot, I, I will try to have telepathic contact with this Sasquatch that I saw in the woods. And immediately he is standing in front of me. And I said, "What's your name?" He says, "You can call me Dave." And the first thing I thought of was a Cheech and Chong movie. you know, Dave's not here. So I'm kind of laughing. And he just did that to be amusing. That's not his real name, but I do call him Dave. So I was able to have a complete conversation with him then and many times since, telepathically. He's appeared to me in person physically 2 or 3 times. He introduced me to the elder of the group first, and he appeared in my driveway. Both of them appeared transparent at that time. So they were interdimensional, sending a hologram, whatever it is when they do that. Maybe they're sending their astral body, something like that. But they were transparent, but I could easily see them. And the elder spoke to me for a few minutes, and he gave his okay for an ongoing exchange of information and a relationship, not only with Dave and the elder, but their entire clan. So they eventually introduced me to their entire clan, which the numbers at that point were 12, but since then they've added some more. And I've had an ongoing relationship. I've been able to ask anything. I've gotten a lot of information from him, including the fact they believe that they are smarter than humans. The reason they live as they do in the woods and not in what we would call civilized life in houses is because that's their habitat. They love it. They choose to live that way. They are interdimensional, so they can phase out anytime they want and disappear and be standing next to somebody, and the human will walk by and not know they're there. They might smell something. Sometimes they'll smell something bad, sometimes something good. Sometimes like a floral smell will happen. They do leave signs for each other in the woods, and the structures that they build that are curved over, like little doorways or arches, they're actually designed for the younger juvenile Bigfoot to use to jump into fifth dimension as a portal, to use that as their portal until they can learn how to do that on their own without the use of this curved arch. And so a lot of Bigfoot researchers will see some unusually shaped trees, some trees that have been uprooted from somewhere else and then placed very carefully in another location. There are a lot of signs to look for in the woods for Bigfoot, and that is one of them. These arches, they seem to be pretty common. Well, he told me that that's what they're for. And so I've had this ongoing relationship, and then he introduced me. Well, actually, I did the Journey to Truth conference last year in Illinois, and the second night I was there, I heard a whoop whoop sound at 4:30 in the morning, and I sat up in bed and I thought, I did not just hear that, because I had never heard that before. I don't go out in the woods, remember? So, but I'm in this cabin right next to the woods in a heavily, heavily forested area where this little resort is. And well, I wouldn't call it a resort, but I mean, it's rustic and it's very nice. Anyway, so I'm in a cabin. I'm in the last cabin on the in the row in this circle. And then I hear a tree knock, and I mean a loud tree knock. And I knew that no human being, no matter how big they are, could have made that sound. It was just too loud. So now they really have my attention. And Debbie was with me. She was in the other bed. I didn't wake her up because I'm thinking that nothing else is going to happen. Well, the next thing that happened was right behind my head on the outside of the cabin. I hear bang, 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 like somebody's really big hand is banging right in that lot. And I thought, okay, they're here for me. That's Sasquatch. They're here for me. Do I get up, get dressed, and go outside and meet with them? Or do I remote view? I opted for the remote viewing. So I went outside and I'm standing next to a 8-foot tall male Sasquatch with very light brown, blondish hair. And he said, my name is Okondo, and Dave sent me. And I'm like, what? You have to be kidding me. Dave sent you? He says, yes. He said, to tell you that the clan is here. My clan is here, and they communicate telepathically with each other or with any clan they want to anywhere. They will instantly know. And he said, Dave told me you were going to be here. And so we came by to say hello and let you know we're here. And then I kind of backed up and I went higher up so I could see, and I saw 15 male Sasquatch in a circle around this area. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I went, and my talk was the next day. So I spoke and I told it to, before I did my talk, I told this story. And two of the people who attended the conference said they heard the whoops. They didn't hear the tree knock or the banging, but they heard the whoops. So yeah, it happened.
It sounds like it definitely did. Sounds very interesting. So what's the most
Yeah.
interesting UFO case you've ever worked on?
Oh gosh. There are so many. I have to say one I'm working right now. We're calling it the North Farm because we don't want to reveal the location. This woman started having strange experiences last August. She's lived on the property for 47 years and nothing anomalous has ever happened. And this is a kind of very rural area, way north of Kansas City, where there's not much going on. And she just said she started hearing strange sounds on her trailer. The security cameras would go off and on, have to be fixed all the time, replaced all the time, be moved, and they're 8 feet off the ground, and sometimes they'd be moved different positions, sometimes looking straight up. And she started capturing things on the security cameras, like balls of light, black creatures that can't be identified, shadows moving around, UFOs. And I mean close, big UFOs in her yard, which is huge, but still in front of the trees. We've got video of that. She's seen pterodactyls going out of a portal and then back into a portal. She's got video of a portal opening where the base looks about 10 feet wide circle with these lights, multicolored lights going around in a circle on the ground. But above it, you see this transparent tornado looking thing that's spinning. And it goes way out. I'd say at least 600 feet or more out in width as it, goes up, down to this point in the ground and then comes up and it gets bigger and bigger as it goes up. And it's spinning and you can see through it. It's transparent. You can clearly see that this thing is there. Well, she has seen objects come up, go on either side of this, whatever this is, portal, and stay there for hours and hours on end. She's seen lights come out of it and then craft come out and then hover right directly above her house, which is across the road from where this portal is located. Sasquatch has been seen on the video, and I've seen it, where the Sasquatch walks up. There's this distortion that happens. And I'm sure you've seen these videos before too. People are getting videos of what look like white objects or just streams of maybe rain, but it's white, and it's just streaking across, and there's lots and lots, there's hundreds of these things, and it's not raining, it's not snowing, and so I saw that and I immediately thought of a TV, an old-fashioned TV that was distorted, that there was a signal interference. Okay, that's what just came in my mind. Signal interference. And the Sasquatch walks up, and you could clearly see his face behind this distortion that's going on. That's not the only time I've seen that. I've seen that with other cases too, but she's got everything going on there at that place. So I brought a team of investigators out a couple of times. We're going back with a physicist. I took, of course, my spectrum analyzer. Another investigator has his. We had all of our K2 meters, our EMF meters. We had everything out on the table. And of course, 1.6 gigahertz, the thing opens after we've been there for about 2 hours and nothing had happened. All of a sudden, everything lights up. And the other thing that occurred, which I thought was very odd, is that this other investigator has a device that warns you of lightning strike. And it was saying, lightning strike right where you are right now. It's imminent. There's, you're going to get hit by lightning, warning us over and over again. Well, the storm was miles away. It was over 10 miles away. You could see it in the distance. Lightning was nowhere near us. And whatever this app is or this device, it only lets you know if it's right on you. So there was no lightning. Then the other strange thing that happened that's, I think, the most bizarre is we were watching planes in the distance. So we were north of KCI Airport. We saw a lot of planes come in, and using our flight radar 24, we could see what the flight numbers were, what the airlines were, where they were headed, all of that. So we identified them. But there were two that were identified, but they were moving extremely slow. And I mean 10 times slower than they should have been. So when you're looking at an airplane that is coming straight at you, it looks like it's standing still. But this went on and on and on. And then there was one in the east and one in the west, and they turned towards each other and they just started moving in and moving into the center. Probably they were making a circle and then they were going to approach KCI. But they took forever to move. I mean, it was just bizarre. And we were commenting on it. I'm videotaping the whole thing. And after I got home, I got thinking about this. Those planes were right in the path of where that portal opening is. Now, we didn't see anything with the naked eye at the time, but they're right through where that portal is. So I think there was a time anomaly that occurred, different time looking through that portal. And I talked to a physicist friend of mine about that, and he says, yeah, he says, I have seen time anomalies with other portals where he has done testing, a lot of testing. And there have been clearly different times in different locations in relation to the portal, where there will be, he uses these very expensive stopwatches and puts them in different areas, puts one near the portal, puts, the others other places. And there's always a time difference when that portal opens between those stopwatches. So this is a major breakthrough, I think. A lot more study needs to be made. And this is a huge case.
Exactly. Now, I don't want to cut you off, but our hour's almost up, and I want you to talk about this class you have coming up in May. It's a 4-day advanced esoteric knowledge course. What would someone learn, and where might they take that class?
Yeah, it's all of my courses are on Zoom. I do a number of them, dowsing, chakras, music, all of that. But this one is a bigger one. We were going to talk about remote viewing, accessing your psychic center, tuning up your chakras, getting your pineal gland activated so that you can do more, using telepathy, just all kinds of stuff. I mean, I'm throwing the gamut in this course. So if people who have taken my remote viewing course, they always improve. There's going to be a little bit of that in there. And yeah, meditation, you name it. So all of that information is on my website at margiek.com, as well as the remote viewing course, which I'm probably going to be doing in January. I don't have dates yet, but I will be doing that in January. So this one starts the end of May, and it goes for Saturday, Sunday, and then it skips to the next weekend, Saturday, Sunday. So it's very intensive, and you know, it will be recorded, but I suggest taking notes and maybe taking a recorder, because there's a lot of information cram packed into this.
Absolutely. And you're going to be doing a conference that I'm going to be speaking at in October here in Springfield, Missouri. And I look
Yes,
forward to that.
mhm,
Yes.
I
Should
do
be
too. I
fun.
look forward to your talk. XCon in Springfield. Just go to unxnetwork.com to register for that. And the early bird tickets are available until May 1st. It's super early bird. And then after May 1st is early bird until August. So the best deal is right now for those tickets.
Sounds like fun. I'm going to let you go for the night. Thank you so much. Now I've just got to do a bunch more research and get in there and do some remote viewing real quick, because you just opened up a whole lot of curiosity in my mind.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Linda. It's always a pleasure.